All right, so today we're diving into something pretty deep, like really foundational to Kabbalah, Tzimtzum.
Yeah, we're talking about a concept that's kind of central in Kabbalah. It's all about how existence, even began. And most of what we'll be looking at is from a book called Iniciación a la Kabbalah Tomo Or.
Right, Initiation to Kabbalah, Volume I, by Rabino Philip S. Berg.
That's the one.
So when we say foundational, we mean it. Tzimtzum isn't just some side idea. It's a pillar. It's kind of like if you want to understand how Kabbalah views creation, you got to get Tzimtzum.
Exactly. It's like the key.
So that's our goal, right?
Yeah.
To really like grasp this whole idea of Tzimtzum. It's this restriction of, well, the divine light and why it's so important, why it's considered this core principle.
And honestly, it might kind of shake up how you've thought about creation before, and the whole nature of the divine.
Definitely. So, like, where do we even start with something this big?
Well, before we even talk about Tzimtzum, we have to go back, like way back, before anything was anything, like the very beginning. And in Kabbalah, that state is called Ein Sof.
Ein Sof, right. Which
That
means
infinite.
the infinite. Okay.
And think about it as this like ultimate reality, a boundless light. It's everywhere. It's everything. Like in the text, they call it luz del infinito. That's light of the infinite.
Boundless everything. It's hard to even, like, imagine, right, a space with no limits at all.
Right.
And the thing is, according to Kabbalah, this Ein Sof, it was totally complete. Perfect. It didn't need anything.
It was everything.
So then, like, how did anything else even, like, happen?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? If everything was this perfect infinite thing, how could anything separate from it, like, exist? How could anything else even come to be?
That's a good question.
It's a paradox. But that's where Tzimtzum comes in. It's the Kabbalistic answer. And it says, basically, for anything to be created, this Ein Sof, it had to limit itself. It had to kind of contract.
Wait, so this infinite light, it had to, like, shrink itself.
It's not about shrinking exactly. In the book, they use the term restricción de la luz. It means restriction of the light.
Restriction, so, like, it's more like it pulled back from itself or something.
Yeah, more like that. But it's important to remember, this wasn't like a weakening, It wasn't losing its power or anything. It was a deliberate thing, a choice to make a void, a space.
They use the word vacío, right?
Yeah, vacío. And emptiness. And this empty space, it was necessary for, anything to exist that wasn't just the Ein Sof.
So it created a void within itself. But, like, how?
Well, think of it like this, like an artist. An artist has all the colors you could imagine, right?
Infinite palette.
Right.
Yeah.
Infinite. But to make a painting, to make something that's not just a blob of all the colors, they need a canvas, a blank canvas.
Okay, I get it. So the Ein Sof is the artist, and to paint something, it had to make a canvas. There's the void, the vacío.
Exactly. And that's Tzimtzum, creating the canvas.
So now there's this void, this space. What happens next?
Well, according to the text, what fills this void is a point of light, a single point.
Just one.
Just one. And they call it the punto medio. It's the very beginning of everything, like the first vessel for the Sephirot.
Right, the Sephirot. Those are like the
emanations of God, the attributes.
Yeah, through which, like, the universe is created. So this point of light is the first step.
Exactly. It's like the seed of everything.
They also call it Malchut of the Olam Ein Sof.
Yeah, that's another way to think about it. It's like Malchut is kingdom and Olam Ein Sof is world of the infinite. So it's like the first point where the infinite manifests into something. It's like the lowest point of the infinite world.
Okay, I think I'm following. We went from the infinite light to a void, and now to a single point of light in that void. And that's where everything starts to come from.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned before this idea of a vessel and a desire to receive. I'm curious, how does that fit in here?
It's super important. In Kabbalah, the whole idea of creation, it's tied to this desire to receive. Think about it. For something to be given, there has to be something that can receive it, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Like, what's the point of giving a gift if there's nothing to accept it?
Right, no one to open it.
Yeah.
So how does Tzimtzum, this restriction, how does that create this vessel and this desire?
That's the thing. Before Tzimtzum, there was only the Ein Sof, and it was all giving. There was nothing separate to receive.
Because it's everything.
Right, it's everything. But when the void was created, that's what allowed for something separate to exist. And that's something it had a desire to receive.
Because it wasn't everything anymore. It was separate.
Exactly. It wasn't the giver. And in the text, they actually say this desire to receive It's the essence of creation.
So creation wasn't just about the Ein Sof, like sending something out,
It was about creating something that could receive, that could interact.
like not just building a radio tower, but making radios to receive the signal. But here's the thing. If the creator is all about giving, then why create something that wants to receive?
That's a good point. It seems kind of contradictory. But in Kabbalah, they say that real fulfillment comes from the balance of giving and receiving.
Like a two-way street.
Exactly. And Tzimtzum, as strange as it sounds, that's what allowed for this balance to exist.
So it's not just a one-way flow of energy. It's a back and forth.
Yes. And that's where the idea of Pandelever comes in.
Bread of shame. I remember that from the outline.
So it's like, imagine if you were always receiving, always being given things, but you never had the chance to give back. It would feel kind of off, right?
Yeah, unbalanced.
Yeah, that's Pandelever. But Tzimtzum, by creating this desire to receive, it also creates the possibility to give. And that makes the whole thing feel more balanced, more complete.
It's about being a participant, not just a receiver. So the restriction wasn't just about making space, but about setting up this whole dynamic of giving and receiving.
Brexit.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked about Ein Sof, Tzimtzum, the point of light, the vessel, and the desire to receive, the balance of giving and receiving, and even this idea of bread of shame.
It's a lot.
It is. So what are, like, the bigger implications of Tzimtzum? Like, what does it all really mean?
Well, I think the first big thing is that it shows us God, the Ein Sof, isn't limited by creation.
So it's not like creation contains God.
No, God chose to make space for something else. It was a deliberate act.
So creation wasn't like an accident.
No, not at all. It was on purpose. And another thing is that free will, the fact that we can make choices, that's a direct result of Tzimtzum.
Because if everything was just the Ein Sof, there wouldn't be any individuality.
Right. No separation, no me and you. But Tzimtzum made that space for us to exist as separate beings with our own will.
So our choices, our experiences, that's all because it's Tzimtzum.
In a way, yeah. And, we kind of do our own Tzimtzum in a way every day.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. When you want to focus on something, really concentrate, you have to block other things out, right?
Like to learn something new or even just have a good conversation, you have to limit distractions.
Exactly. We restrict our own focus to make space for what's important. It's like a mini Tzimtzum.
That's really interesting. So this huge cosmic event, it's reflected in our own lives.
Kind of makes you think about the whole idea of infinity and, well, the finite world differently.
It's not just a story about something being made. It's about this whole, like, relationship between the infinite and the finite.
And it reminds us that creation was about more than just, pouring something out. It was about holding back, making space for something new and unique to appear.
So to wrap up this deep dive, Tzimtzum, this, like, paradox of God restricting itself, it wasn't about becoming less. It was about making existence possible. The whole universe, with its capacity for receiving, for growing, for relating, for having free will, it all goes back to this first act of Tzimtzum.
It's pretty amazing. It means that limitation, in this context, it wasn't a bad thing.
It was necessary.
It was the very beginning of everything.
It was the canvas.
Exactly.
And on that note, here's something to think about. How does this idea of Tzimtzum, this creating space through limitation, apply to your own life?
Hmm?
Have you ever found that, setting boundaries or even restricting yourself in some way actually opened up new possibilities?
Sometimes those limitations can be, they can be freeing in a way.
Exactly. Maybe you think about those times when you made space, physically, mentally, emotionally, for something new. It might give you a whole new perspective on this idea of Tzimtzum. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was fun.